I've been waiting 3 years to write this post, not because I needed time to heal, because I needed time to prepare. For those wondering, yes, I'm the guy whose wife Eliza took every cent from our joint savings while I was deployed overseas, bought a four-bedroom house with her affair partner Victor, and then had the audacity to greet me at the airport like nothing happened. And yes, I smiled so wide my jaw hurt that day, because by the time my boots hit American soil again, I already knew everything, and she had no idea. Let me back up. Eliza and I met in 2018 through her brother Kieran, who served in my unit. We dated for 2 years, married in 2020. I was 28, she was 26. We had what I thought was a solid foundation. Both sets of parents helped us with wedding costs. My mom loved her mom loved me, which becomes relevant later. We bought a starter condo together, split everything 50-50, and I thought we were building something real. The thing about Eliza that I didn't see clearly until it was too late, she resented my deployments. Not in the way normal spouses do, missing their partner and counting down days. She resented them because she felt entitled to a husband who was present, who could take her to brunches, who could be shown off at her work events. She told me once, about a year into our marriage, that her co-worker Kimberly's husband had left the military for a corporate security job. Said it like a suggestion. I told her I wasn't ready to leave. She dropped it, or so I thought. My last deployment was October 2022, 9 months in the sandbox. Before I left, we had $214,000 in our joint savings. This was a combination of my deployment bonuses over the years, hazard pay, and the fact that I lived like a monk while overseas. No expensive hobbies, no impulse purchases, just me banking everything for our future because I thought we had a future. All right, I need everyone to understand the math here, because this is where the story starts hitting different. This man is sleeping in desert conditions, eating MREs, being away from everything comfortable, and he's not even spending money on himself. He's banking hazard pay. You know what hazard pay is? That's I might literally die money, and he's putting it in a joint account because he trusts his wife. Meanwhile, she's mad because she can't show him off at brunch. Brunch, the most weaponized meal in existence. She wanted a husband who could eat overpriced eggs Benedict with her coworkers, while this man is out there risking his actual life. The entitlement is so thick you could spread it on avocado toast. Here's where I need to be clear about something. The joint account was in both our names. Legally, she had every right to access it. I'm not claiming she committed any crime. What she did was worse than a crime. It was a complete betrayal dressed up in legal technicalities. I found out 3 months into my deployment, not through some dramatic discovery, through a banking app notification on my phone at 0300, telling me our account balance had dropped below $50,000. I logged in, scrolling through transaction after transaction. Real estate attorney fees, down payment wire transfer, furniture purchases, moving company charges, all within a 2-week window in January 2023. I didn't call her. I didn't text her. I called my buddy Nathan back stateside, a guy I'd known since basic training who worked in real estate after he got out. I asked him to do some digging for me. Took him 4 days, but he found the property records. New construction home in a suburb 40 minutes from our condo. 2 names on the deed, Eliza and Victor Reyes. Victor was her coworker, the one whose wife Kimberly had the husband who left the military. Turns out Victor left Kimberly too. So there I was, 7,000 miles away, staring at property records on my phone. And you know what I did? I started planning, not crying, not calling her in a rage, planning. This man found out his wife bought a house with another man while he's deployed in an active zone. And his first instinct wasn't to lose his mind. It was to call his real estate buddy for reconnaissance. That's either the most impressive emotional regulation I've ever witnessed, or this man was already operating on a different frequency. Most people would be throwing their phone across the tent, crying, calling their mom at 3 a.m. their time. He just went full intelligence operation. And honestly, that's the military training kicking in. Assess the situation. Gather intel. Don't reveal your position. She thought she was being sneaky? She married someone who was literally trained to be sneakier. Play stupid games, you're about to win the stupidest prize imaginable. See, most guys in my situation would have confronted immediately, would have called screaming, would have tipped their hand, would have given Eliza time to lawyer up and prepare her defense. I'm not most guys. I spent the remaining 6 months of my deployment researching divorce attorneys, asset division laws in our state, military divorce procedures. I read everything. I took notes. I made a timeline of every financial transaction she made. And here's the part that still makes me smile. I kept texting her normally, sent her pictures, asked about her day, told her I missed her, She had no idea I knew. Every time she texted back with heart emojis and told me she couldn't wait for me to come home, I screenshot it. Because those texts proved she was actively deceiving me, maintaining the marriage facade while literally building a life with another man. The homecoming was July 2023. My mom and her mom, Emily, both came to the airport. That's right. Eliza's own mother still thought everything was fine. Still thought her daughter was a faithful military wife. Emily had brought a welcome home sign she made herself. She hugged me and told me how proud she was. I hugged her back and thought about how much this was going to destroy her when she found out what her daughter had done. And then there was Eliza, walking toward me in a sundress, arms open, calling out, "Sweetheart," like she hadn't spent the last 9 months playing house with Victor Reyes. She hugged me, told me she missed me, asked if I was tired from the flight, and I smiled. I smiled so wide it probably looked insane. I told her I'd never felt more awake in my life. She laughed and said that was the adrenaline talking. 6 months. 6 months of sending "miss you babe" texts while knowing, while building a legal case, while documenting every single heart emoji she sent back. He turned himself into a one-man legal preparation committee while she thought she was getting away with the perfect crime. And the airport scene? Her walking up in a sundress saying "sweetheart," while her own mother who made a handmade sign is standing right there? Eliza really woke up every day and chose violence against everyone who loved her. She didn't just betray her husband. She let her mother stand there with poster board and markers, celebrating a lie. The sociopathy required to maintain that level of performance for that long. I'm not saying I'm scared, but I'm taking notes on what red flags to look for. The drive home was surreal. She drove us back to our condo, chattering about her job, asking about my flight, playing the perfect wife. Meanwhile, I knew she'd been living in that house with Victor the whole time. The condo was just for show now, a stage set for my homecoming. She'd moved her essential stuff back in the week before I landed. Nathan had told me that too. That first night home, after unpacking my gear, I told her I was jet-lagged and needed a drink. I poured myself a bourbon, sat on our couch, and looked at the woman I'd married. She curled up next to me, head on my shoulder, and said she was so glad I was finally home. I took a sip and I made my decision. I wasn't going to confront her yet. I wasn't going to blow up our lives in a dramatic scene. I was going to be strategic. I was going to document everything. And I was going to make sure that when this ended, she wouldn't just lose me. She'd lose everything she thought she'd gained. What I didn't know that night, what I wouldn't find out until 2 weeks later, was that Victor's ex-wife, Kimberly, had already filed for divorce citing infidelity, and that Kimberly's attorney had sent Eliza a letter warning her that she would be named in the proceedings. Eliza had been hiding that letter from me, but she couldn't hide it from her mother, Emily, who had accidentally seen it when she stopped by the condo to drop off my welcome home cake. Emily called me the next day while Eliza was at work. She asked me to meet her, said it was urgent, said it was about her daughter. That meeting changed everything. And Reddit, I promise you, what Emily told me made the $200K look like the least of Eliza's betrayals. Update coming. I just need to gather my thoughts because the next part involves Eliza's entire family imploding, and I want to make sure I tell it right. Update 1. All right, Reddit, I'm back. Some of you called it in the comments. Some of you said Emily was going to be the key to this whole thing. You were half right, but nobody guessed what she actually told me. First, let me address something. A lot of people asked why Emily would call me instead of confronting her own daughter first. Fair question. The answer is complicated, and it says everything about who Eliza really is. Emily met me at a diner near her house. She was already sitting in a booth when I arrived, and she looked like she hadn't slept. The first thing she said was that she was sorry. Not for Eliza specifically, not yet. Just sorry. Like she was apologizing for something she hadn't even explained. Then she slid a manila envelope across the table and told me to read what was inside before she said anything else. The letter from Kimberly's divorce attorney was standard legal language. It named Eliza as a third party whose testimony might be requested regarding the breakdown of the Reyes marriage. But that wasn't what Emily wanted me to see. Tucked behind it were printouts of WhatsApp messages, screenshots, dozens of them, all between Eliza and Emily dating back to November 2022, 1 month after I deployed. Reddit, my mother-in-law had kept receipts. Here's what the messages showed. Starting in November, Eliza had been texting her mother almost daily about how unhappy she was, how I was never around, how she felt like a widow even though her husband was alive. Standard stuff at first, the kind of venting military spouses do, but then it shifted. By December, she was talking about Victor. She called him a friend from work, said he understood what it was like to feel invisible in a marriage because Kimberly was always focused on her career. Said talking to him made her feel seen. By January, The messages got explicit, not about the affair itself, but about her plans. She told Emily she was thinking about buying property with Victor, called it an investment, said Victor's divorce was going to be finalized soon and they wanted to get established before the market shifted. She asked Emily for advice on real estate attorneys. Emily, not knowing the full picture, gave her a referral. The same attorney whose fees I saw on my bank statement. Emily kept the WhatsApp messages. This mother printed out her own daughter's texts like she was preparing a court exhibit. And here's what's actually insane about this. Eliza used her own mother as an unwitting accomplice. She asked Emily for a real estate attorney recommendation and framed it as an investment opportunity. She literally tricked her mom into helping her betray her husband. That's not just betrayal, that's multi-level deception. She was running game on everyone. Her husband, her mother, probably Victor too if we're being honest. The audacity to ask your mom for help buying a love nest while pretending it's a business move. Eliza really thought she was the main character in some heist movie where she gets away clean. Spoiler alert. She's actually the character who gets caught because she talked too much. Emily told me she didn't realize what was happening until she saw that legal letter last week. She thought Eliza and Victor were friends doing a business deal. She thought I knew about the property purchase. She assumed Eliza had told me everything because what wife would make a $200K decision without telling her deployed husband? I sat there listening to Emily explain how she'd been manipulated by her own daughter, and I realized something important. Eliza wasn't some love-struck woman who fell into an affair. She was a planner. She executed a months-long operation to extract herself from our marriage while keeping everyone in the dark. Her mother, her brother Kieran, me. She compartmentalized information to each of us so no one person had the full picture. Emily asked me what I wanted to do. I told her I wanted to talk to Eliza first, directly. Without lawyers, without drama, just the two of us. Emily said that was fair, but warned me that Eliza had been practicing her explanation for weeks. She'd overheard Eliza on the phone with Victor just 2 days ago, running through talking points about how to frame everything if I ever found out. So Eliza knew the clock was ticking. She just didn't know I already knew. That night, I went home and waited. Eliza came back from work around 6, kicked off her shoes, and started talking about her day like nothing was wrong. I let her go on for about 10 minutes. Then I asked her a simple question. I asked her who Victor Reyes was. The silence lasted maybe 3 seconds, but it felt longer. Then she recovered. She said Victor was a coworker, someone from her department. Why was I asking? I told her I'd seen the property records. I told her I knew about the house. I told her I'd known since January. And here's where Eliza showed me exactly who she was. She didn't cry. She didn't apologize. She didn't even look scared. She got angry. She asked me why I'd been spying on her. She demanded to know who told me, like the leak was the problem and not what she'd done. She said I had no right to investigate her life while I was overseas instead of being a husband. She was practicing her speech, running through talking points with Victor like they were prepping for a press conference. Okay, babe, if he asks about the money, pivot to his emotional unavailability. If he brings up the house, frame it as taking initiative for our future. These two were running crisis communications drills. And then, when the moment actually comes, when this man calmly says, I've known since January, she doesn't apologize, doesn't cry, she gets mad at him for finding out. Why were you spying on me? Ma'am, you stole $200,000. That's not spying, that's auditing. The leak is her concern. She's out here worried about information security while the whole foundation of her scheme is crumbling. Truly the mindset of someone who thinks the problem is getting caught, not the actual crime. I stayed calm. I asked her to explain how spending our entire savings on a house with another man was my fault. She said the money was as much hers as mine, which technically was true. She said she'd contributed to that account too, which was technically true, but ignored that she'd contributed maybe $30K over 3 years while I'd contributed the rest. She said Victor made her feel like a priority, not an afterthought. Then came the justification I'd been waiting for. She said she'd tried to tell me she was unhappy. She brought up that conversation about Kimberly's husband leaving the military. She said that was her opening a door and I slammed it in her face. She said from that moment she knew I would never choose her over my career, so she chose herself. I asked her if choosing herself meant lying to me for 9 months, texting me heart emojis while living with another man, letting her mother make a welcome home sign for a marriage that was already dead. She said I was being dramatic. She said plenty of military marriages end this way. She said she was doing me a favor by not making a scene while I was deployed because it could have affected my focus and gotten me killed. Read it? She framed her betrayal as a kindness. I told her I wanted a divorce. She said fine. Then she said she expected me to be reasonable about the settlement. She said the house was in her name and Victor's name, and I had no claim to it. She said I could have the condo. She acted like she was being generous by letting me keep our starter home while she lived in a four-bedroom with her affair partner. I didn't argue. I didn't fight. I just said okay and went to sleep in the guest room. But here's what Eliza didn't know. The next morning, her brother Kieran showed up at our door. He'd gotten a call from Emily the night before, and unlike his sister, Kieran actually has a conscience. What happened when Kieran walked in and saw me packing a bag while his sister sat on the couch looking annoyed? That's where this gets really complicated. Because Kieran didn't just come to check on me. He came with information about Victor that Eliza had been hiding from everyone, and it's information that's about to make her house of cards collapse in ways she never anticipated. More soon. I need to figure out how much I can share without affecting the legal situation. I was doing you a favor by not telling you while deployed because you might have died. Absolutely unhinged logic. She really sat there and reframed theft and infidelity as a public service. I cheated on you for your own safety, babe. You're welcome. And then she has the audacity to offer him the condo like she's being magnanimous. She stole his money, bought a mansion with another man, and now she's acting like she's doing charity work by not taking the starter home too. The delusion is Olympic level. But here's what kills me. She contributed $30K to that account. 30 out of 214,000. That's 14%. She took the whole thing and acted like they went halfsies. The math isn't mathing, but she's already moved on to her next manipulation. Update 2. Reddit. I promised you things were about to get complicated. I underdelivered, they got catastrophic. When Kieran walked into our condo that morning, Eliza looked at him like he was there to back her up. Like family loyalty meant he'd automatically take her side. She started explaining the situation before he even sat down, spinning this narrative about how I was overreacting, how the house with Victor was just an investment opportunity, how she'd been planning to tell me everything after I settled back in. Kieran let her talk. He stood in our living room with his arms crossed, listening to his sister rationalize her choices. When she finished, he asked her one question. He asked her why Victor had been telling everyone at their office that she pursued him, that she'd been the one to make the first move, to push for the relationship, to suggest buying property together as a way to lock him in. Eliza's face changed. She tried to laugh it off. She said Victor was just being protective of his reputation because of the divorce with Kimberly. She said it didn't matter who pursued who because they were together now, and that was what counted. Kieran told her it mattered because Victor wasn't just telling coworkers. He'd told Kimberly's attorney the same thing. Victor had submitted a statement claiming Eliza had manipulated him during a vulnerable time in his marriage. He was positioning himself as the victim to get better terms in his divorce settlement, and he was using Eliza as the villain of his story. I watched Eliza process this. I watched her realize that the man she'd thrown away her marriage for was actively betraying her in legal documents. And I felt nothing. No sympathy, no vindication even. Just a cold satisfaction that her careful plans were already crumbling without me having to do anything. Victor threw her under the bus in legal documents. This man is out here telling attorneys that Eliza manipulated him during his vulnerable divorce. He's painting himself as the victim. She gave up a marriage, $200,000, her family relationships, her reputation, and this dude is already preparing to sacrifice her for better divorce terms. The snake she left her husband for turned out to be an even bigger snake than she was. And honestly, this is poetic. She thought she was playing chess while everyone else played checkers, but Victor was playing a completely different game where she was just a piece to be sacrificed. She really fumbled a loyal military husband for a guy who's already drafting legal statements calling her a predator. You cannot write irony this clean. But here's the thing, Reddit. I wasn't going to just sit back and watch it crumble. That's not revenge. That's just spectating. After Kieran dropped that bomb, Eliza grabbed her phone and stormed out to call Victor. I heard her through the front door demanding explanations, asking him why he'd throw her under the bus. The conversation went on for at least 20 minutes. When she came back inside, she looked shaken. She told me and Kieran that it was a misunderstanding, that Victor's lawyer had twisted his words, that he loved her and they were solid. Kieran told her she was delusional. He told her he'd served with me, he'd trusted me with his life, and she'd betrayed not just her husband but his brother in arms. He said their mother was devastated and their father didn't even know the full story yet. He said Eliza had destroyed their family's reputation for a man who was already selling her out. That's when Eliza turned on me. She said this was my fault for telling everyone, for involving her family, for not handling this privately like adults. She said if I'd just come to her first instead of going to Emily, none of this would be happening. I told her I didn't go to Emily. Emily came to me, because Emily found the attorney's letter, because Eliza was sloppy, because she left evidence where her own mother could find it. Eliza went quiet. Then she asked what I wanted, what it would take for this to go away. She actually thought she could negotiate her way out of consequences. I told her exactly what I wanted. I wanted the $200K she took from our account. I wanted her to sign divorce papers without contesting anything. I wanted her to tell her father the truth herself before he heard it from someone else. And I wanted her to understand that this wasn't going away. This was her life now. She laughed. Actually laughed. She said I couldn't get the money back because it was already in the house. She said even if she sold the house, Victor owned half and he'd never agree. She said I could have the condo and that was the best I was going to get. She acted like she was being reasonable. What would it take for this to go away? She's still trying to negotiate. Her whole life is imploding. Her husband knows, her mother knows, her brother is disgusted, her boyfriend is throwing her under the bus legally, and she thinks there's a deal to be made? Some people really go through life thinking everything has a price. Every situation has an exit strategy. Every consequence can be managed. She cannot fathom that some things just happen, that sometimes you make choices and you have to live with them. No spin, no reframing, no negotiation, and her brother Kieran standing there telling her she betrayed a brother in arms. The family she thought would protect her is actively choosing the man she wronged. She burned every bridge thinking she'd never need to cross back, but I had 6 months to plan. And I'd done my research. I told her that under our state's marital dissolution laws, assets moved during deployment without spousal consent are subject to additional scrutiny. I told her that while she technically had access to the joint account, the amount and timing of the withdrawal combined with the concealment of the purpose could be considered marital waste. I told her my attorney, who I'd retained 3 weeks before I landed, had already prepared a motion to freeze any asset transfers from her name until the divorce was finalized. Her laugh stopped. I told her that Victor's house, the one she'd poured our savings into, was purchased during his legal separation from Kimberly, but before their divorce was finalized, which meant Kimberly could potentially make claims against it. Which meant Eliza's investment wasn't just ethically bankrupt, it might be legally compromised too. Kieran looked at me with something like respect. Eliza looked at me like she was seeing me for the first time. She asked when I became like this. When I turned into someone who would weaponize legal procedures against his own wife. I told her I became this the night I was 7,000 miles away, sleeping in the sand, while she was picking out furniture for a house with another man. I told her she created this version of me, and now she had to deal with him. She left, packed a bag and went to Victor's. Didn't say goodbye to her brother. Didn't look at me. That was 3 days ago. Since then, Emily called me twice to check in. She's been crying a lot. She keeps apologizing for raising a daughter who could do this. I told her it wasn't her fault, but I don't think she believes me. Kieran helped me move out of the condo that weekend. I'm staying at Nathan's place now, the same friend who found the property records. The condo is sitting empty because I'm not living somewhere Eliza picked out, and she's not coming back there either. My attorney filed the motion yesterday. Eliza was served at Victor's house this morning. According to the process server, Victor answered the door and looked confused when he saw her name on the papers. Like maybe he didn't know she was still legally married. Like maybe Eliza had been keeping secrets from him too. And here's the part that's about to blow everything up. Yesterday afternoon, Eliza's father texted me. He said his daughter had been avoiding his calls for a week. He said Emily wouldn't explain what was happening. He said he was driving down from upstate this weekend and he wanted to hear the truth from me directly. Read it. Eliza's father is a retired state trooper. Old school, traditional values. The kind of man who walked his daughter down the aisle and told me if I ever hurt her, he'd make my life miserable. Now I have to tell him that his daughter is the one who did the hurting. And I have to do it before Eliza gets the chance to spin her version first. I'm meeting him Saturday morning. Final update coming after that. Because one way or another, this is where it all comes to a head. She created this version of me. That line is going to live in my head rent-free. This is what happens when you push a calm, methodical person past their limit. You don't get an explosion, you get a machine. You get someone who spent 6 months in a war zone building a legal case instead of processing emotions. And now it's paying off. Asset freeze motion filed. Marital waste arguments prepared. Kimberly's potential claims on the house documented. She thought she was dealing with a heartbroken husband. She was dealing with someone who'd become an entire law firm in cargo pants. And Victor didn't even know she was still married? Eliza was running multiple deceptions simultaneously and got caught because she was sloppy. Left evidence at her mom's house. The mastermind who couldn't cover her tracks. Final update. Read it, it's done. All of it. And I need to tell you how it ended because some of you have been in my DMs asking if I'm okay. I'm better than okay. I'm free. Saturday morning, I met Eliza's father, Robert, at a breakfast spot near Nathan's place. He'd driven 4 hours for answers. I told him everything. The deployment, the bank account, the house with Victor, the WhatsApp messages Emily showed me, Victor's legal statements blaming Eliza. All of it. I didn't exaggerate. I just laid out facts. Robert sat there without speaking for a long time. Then he asked if I still had the screenshots of property records, bank transactions, the timeline I'd built overseas. I sent everything while we sat there. He scrolled through his phone, reading dates and dollar amounts. And I watched a father realize his daughter had become someone he didn't recognize. He told me he was sorry, not on Eliza's behalf. He was sorry because he'd always believed she was better than this. He said he was driving to Victor's house to talk to Eliza directly. I told him that was his choice, but I was done having conversations with her. Everything from this point would go through attorneys. That same Saturday, my attorney informed me Eliza's response to our asset freeze motion was due Monday. Her options were limited: large withdrawal during deployment, concealment of purpose, investment in property with a third party. The timeline spoke for itself, but the real pressure came from Victor. He'd been playing both sides. Told Kimberly's attorney that Eliza manipulated him. Told Eliza they were solid. On Sunday, Eliza found out the truth. Kieran texted me she'd shown up at Emily's house hysterical. Victor wanted her off the deed. He said her name was creating complications with Kimberly's claims. He wanted her to sign a quitclaim deed, transferring her interest to him. In exchange, he'd pay her back over time. No timeline, no contract, just his word. The man she'd destroyed her marriage for was asking her to give up her only asset based on a verbal promise. Victor asked her to sign away her stake in the house she put $200,000 into, in exchange for, "I'll pay you back eventually, trust me, bro." No timeline, no contract, just vibes and verbal promises from a man who's already on record calling her a manipulator in legal proceedings. She gave up a loyal husband for a man who won't even put a payment plan in writing. The trash took itself out and then asked for the recycling bin, too. She's watching in real time as the life she thought she was building becomes a cautionary tale. Everything she sacrificed her marriage for is being demanded back by the person she sacrificed it for. If Karma was a screenwriter, they'd be getting Oscar nominations. Eliza refused. Victor told her if she didn't cooperate, he'd reconsider their relationship entirely. He threatened to leave her if she didn't hand over the house she'd paid for. Now Eliza faced pressure from 3 directions. My legal motion freezing her assets. Victor demanding she sign away her investment and her own family. Robert had confronted her Saturday afternoon, told her she'd shamed their family, told her Emily was heartbroken, told her if she needed help, real help, she'd have to earn back their trust first. Eliza called me Sunday night. I let it go to voicemail. She said she knew she'd made mistakes, said Victor was turning on her, said maybe we could work out some settlement that didn't destroy both of us. I listened to that voicemail 3 times. Not because I was considering it, because I wanted to memorize the sound of her desperation. I'd spent 6 months listening to her fake affection while she built a life without me. Now I wanted to remember what it sounded like when that life collapsed. Monday came. Eliza's attorney accepted the asset freeze rather than contesting it. She couldn't sell or transfer anything until our divorce finalized, which meant she couldn't give Victor what he wanted. Victor, unable to get Eliza off the deed quickly, listed the house for sale without her consent. He couldn't legally do this. That attempt became part of our discovery process, demonstrating her co-owner was acting against her interests. The divorce finalized 11 weeks later. I got the condo, which I sold. I got a judgment for $127,000 representing my portion of marital assets converted without consent. She's on a payment plan. It'll take years. The house eventually sold at a loss after Kimberly's attorney claimed a portion of Victor's equity. Eliza walked away with almost nothing from a property she'd poured $200K into. Victor tried to list the house for sale without her consent. He couldn't even wait for the legal process. He just threw up a listing like she didn't exist. And that move? That became evidence in the divorce proceedings, showing he was acting against her interests as co-owner. Victor fumbled so hard he actually helped her husband's legal case. You cannot make this up. 2 people who thought they were smarter than everyone else, and they ended up sabotaging each other. She lost almost everything from a $200,000 investment because she picked a partner who was always looking for his own exit strategy. Meanwhile, Kimberly's attorney took a piece of Victor's equity too. Everyone involved in this mess lost except the one person who stayed calm and let the dominoes fall. Last I heard from Kieran, Eliza rents an apartment alone. Victor left her 2 weeks after the house sold. Her relationship with her parents is strained. She pays me monthly while working the same job where she met the man who ruined her life. Me? I re-enlisted, got promoted, stationed somewhere new with money in the bank. She called me sweetheart when I came home. I smiled so wide my jaw hurt, because I knew everything she'd built on my sacrifice would eventually collapse. I just had to be patient enough to watch it happen.